Thanks. I feel kind of bad that this many people are still here and you've made it this far, and all you get at the end is me. Oh no, don't worry, I don't need that affirmation. I appreciate it. So I'm not really good at this to begin with the podium. I feel like I'm selling a juicer right now on the set of the Home Shopping Network. And I also just wrote this like 15 minutes ago and have completely forgotten it. So bear with me while I do this. Everyone has talked to you today about good writing. I want to show you some bad writing by me. I want to make you read some bad leads that I wrote because, God damn it, somebody should have to. Last year, some other reporters and I wrote a series of stories about the local school board neglecting schools in black neighborhoods. The first story was excruciating. It was really tough, and I'm going to take you through about a dozen leads, first sentences, first opening paragraphs that I wrote to prove to you how difficult it was for us. And what I'm hoping you take away from this is how bad I am as a reporter. No, that's not. What I'm hoping you take away from this is how difficult it is, or it can be for a writer, for me, to get to a place where I can write just a simple, true sentence about a complicated topic. So like I said, it was excruciating, but it didn't have to be. I think that I didn't stop soon enough in the process to force myself to break down what the story was into its simplest possible parts. Instead, I just went right into it. So I'll walk you through what my thinking was as I was writing these things out, and I'll show you what the product was, so you don't have to look at me. Okay, it's the beginning. We've just spent a year interviewing 100 families, tens of thousands of records we've read. We talked to scores of officials, teachers, people in school districts all across Florida. We've got all this information. We've gone through millions of rows of data on everything you can imagine: teacher quality, student discipline, enrollment figures, applications to the magnets and special programs in the schools. We have all this stuff. And rather than sitting down and breaking this massive story, this first one that I want to tell, into its simplest possible parts, I said, okay, I know what the story is. Let's just get into it. Let's sit down and write. So I felt like at that moment, I was in a room and I could see all of the parts of the story laid out in front of me. And all I needed to do was to walk over to them, pick them up, and put them together in the right order. I felt good. I felt pumped. I felt ready to do this. I felt like I knew what I was doing. In reality, I was totally screwed. I was in a dark room, and I didn't even know the lights were off. So this is the process of how I kind of got through that. I sat down, who needs to think? Let's just write this out, let the juices start flowing. And this is what I came up with. A little dry, but we're just getting warmed up. Wait a second, I forgot to talk. So it's okay. A little dry, but beyond that, starting in a moment like this is a moment where the school board in question could have made a decision and instead did not. Pretty good, it might get at the point of what I was trying to make, but it didn't really lead any place. It didn't lead me into the place where I thought that the story, the sum of the parts of the reporting, was supposed to lead us. So I think, what's the point? Where am I trying to go with this? But then I think, never mind. Let's just do another one. We know what the story is, so maybe if we lull and surprise the reader, things will fall into place then. But it's not quite right either. It puts the focus on the phenomenon that there's a group of kids who are out in these schools and they're failing a lot. And it takes it away from the people who are responsible, who need the focus. So I decided, let's just keep going. But at this point in the game, I'm totally lost. I start casting around wildly, seesawing between other phenomenon leads and other in-the-moment leads, not really sure, why I don't even know where I'm going with the story. Like a David Finkel lead. Some of you might recognize. I don't even want to look at that one. Or that one, really. So yeah, nothing works. Nothing is working as I'm doing this. And at this point in the game, I'm like a speed freak who has just realized that I'm in a room with no windows and a door that doesn't open. So I'm freaking out. And I'm thinking like, okay, stay calm. Put a kid in it. People like kids. You work at the St. Pete Times, for Christ's sake. Kid one. There's not really much going on there. I actually loved this last lead. But it sounds a little too much like a story about violence and not what our story was about, because our story is not just about violence, as I was thinking at the time. Our story is about... But then I thought, what if we just did a better job showing that this problem was this glaring inequality in a place that was otherwise pretty wealthy? There we go. Swamp Town lead. That's a fan favorite back there. This read it a couple times. Points for Swamp Town, but it's like it's still not getting the job done. So we try another kid. Right? That's always the answer. This guy, by the way, was on the lead of every story that we wrote until day 3, and then finally was the lead of day 3. So go James. So wait a second. So okay, at this point, you got to stop. I'm in the process. I'm thinking. I'm like, all right, I got to take a breath. What do I got to do? I need to go to a bar. And then I thought, no. I need to sit and I need to think. I need to think and I need to force myself to write a simple declarative sentence about what this story is supposed to say at this point. This is weeks and weeks into the process. So I didn't save the exact original sentence, but it was something like this. And this is it. Like, this is the moment that I've been putting off in my writing of this story. In part, I've been putting it off because I didn't know what the answer was. But in part, I was also putting it off because I didn't know that I didn't know what the answer was as the writer. Sometimes I have to put in an enormous amount of work to not just in learning about the subject that I'm writing, especially when it's something so big and complex as this, but in also thinking about what I've learned once I've done that. And this was the process that was sort of coalescing around these different drafts. A lot of good writers of journalism have a love-hate relationship with the nut graph. Am I right? Yeah. It can, it's what we call the nut graph, the distillation into a few simple declarative sentences of what in the hell the story is supposed to be about. It can break up the ebb and flow of a good story. It can be inelegant. But what I realized at this moment is that even if you have no plans to use a nut graph in your story, you should try to write it first, if you can. You should sit down and try to write something like that. Not because you're obeying this journalism dictum that must be obeyed, but because it's an organizing tool and a clarifying agent for you as a writer. All of my false starts, I came to realize, didn't mean that I was telling the story badly, which is what I thought it meant. It meant that I was telling the wrong story, one that was not the sum of all the parts of the reporting that we did. So, like I said, I sat down and I wrote this. And when you do that, when you sit down and write something like this, you force yourself to take honest stock of what you have, and you're forced to ask yourself, what is the story that this material actually tells? Which is a different question from what is the story that you think it is, right? That's a totally different question. So anyhow, you can look into a good nut graph and see all of the organization, all of the proof that you have to do, looking right back at you. When I wrote this, I looked at it and I said, damn, that sentence is too long. So I figured that I could either cut it down or start breaking it up. So I went to break it up, and this is how I started breaking it up. And then we talked, we went back and forth with the editors a few more days, we kept breaking it up a little more, tweaking things. And this is the final draft. So that's my embarrassing story of self-discovery. If you would like to read the rest of the story, the link is right there. And that's it. Thanks.